Well, the ANC Integrity Committee is today meeting to deliberate on its President Cyril Ramaphosa's scandal of alleged money laundering and corruption. Last week, a former intelligence boss, Arthur Fraser, filed a criminal complaint against Ramaphosa for acting in contravention of the Prevention of Organised Crime Act. President Ramaphosa has since maintained his innocence. We're joined by our senior reporter here, Samkele Maseko. Very good afternoon to you. Great to see you in studio with me this time around, not in the streets as we usually do. We heard from Bantu Holomisa. He's been quite outspoken on this particular issue involving Phala Farm. He's released a statement. We even saw it on social media, where he boldly even says the president stole millions and that he's calling for a preliminary investigation and that the president should, in fact, I'll use the phrase step aside, although that's not what it is, but step aside in the meantime while this investigation carries on. What's the likelihood of that, in fact, happening?
In essence, the likelihood of that happening is if and when the president of the ANC and of the country is formally charged, should and when the South African Police Service conclude its investigation into the matter. We do know that the UDM leader Bantu Holomisa has called on 3 retired Constitutional Court judges to chair this particular inquiry into the wrong dealings or perceived wrong dealings of the president, going as far as to say that he is the commander-in-chief of the security apparatus within the country and that he can't be in office when the security apparatus is also alleged to have tortured these particular men who stole those millions of dollars at the president's Phala farm out in Limpopo, and in collaboration with the Namibian government, when they alerted the South African authorities of these particular individuals, they then suppressed this particular investigation, and it's alleged that the president ended up bribing these particular individuals in order for this matter to just quickly disappear, which happened over 2 years ago. So in essence, this has opened up a kind of worms of the dealings of the president's operations in the Phala farm, where in the Limpopo ANC Provincial Conference, he said that he sells game, people come and hunt at this particular farm, and they sometimes deal in cash. One wonders then how much cash in dollars was there at this Phala farm, saying that the money that is currently being branded about within the social media space and the affidavit that was filled in by Arthur Fraser is not the actual amount, and it's much less than what is actually reported. One wonders how much is actually there in that Phala farm.
And I mean, Samkele, when we're talking about millions, there's always the question of whether or not everything was above board. So it puts into question a lot of things. And that leads me to the next question involving the Integrity Commission. And just a correction on our script. The Integrity Commission has not said they're meeting as yet, but there is an expectation that they should be meeting and that something should be discussed. Are we hearing anything from the Integrity Commission regarding, meeting up with the president or any work that they'll be doing on the side with regards to this?
At this point in time, George Mashamba, the chair of the Integrity Commission of the African National Congress, is pretty much quiet. We don't know what he's thinking. We've been trying to contact him the entire day. His phone simply just goes to voicemail, and it's actually proves the point that it's very difficult to get hold of George Mashamba, particularly on controversial matters involving senior leaders of the African National Congress. The only time you ever hear from the Integrity Commission of the governing party is when they've released a report to the National Executive Committee, or when a report from the Integrity Commission is leaked in one of the leaders of the African National Congress. But on this particular aspect involving the president of their party, they've been very quiet. They've been mum on the particular issue. But we do know that it's caused a bit of ructions within the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress. Hlati, Tony Ngeni, rather, his nickname is Hlati. He's been very vocal on this particular issue of the president, saying that it's got smirks of money laundering and racketeering, and how these people actually come into the country with these dollars of rands without it being declared to the African Revenue Services, SARS, which also opens up an investigation by SARS to check how much was there, how was it transferred, how was it brought to the president's farm, and what are the dealings of this particular farm, despite the president saying at the Limpopo conference that he's declared this particular farming business of his, starting from Tabanyoni out in Mpumalanga, where he does the Ankole farming, and then Phala, where he does this particular gaming of animal, and where people go and hunt at this particular farm. So it's going to be interesting, the operations of this farm, and also it brings into question the issue of the president selling these animals. Does he sell these animals on a private individual basis through the Phala farm, or are they auctioned just like he usually has auctions through his Ntabanyoni cattle farming business of Ankole? So those are the questions that the president needs to answer. In question when he was asked by our colleagues out in Limpopo yesterday on whether how much dollars were actually in that farm, which was stolen. The president said that will only come out in the inquiry, which he says he will fully cooperate with. But as one of the former Business Day editors said, comrades deal with hardcore cash as we swipe.
Yeah, you know, it's no secret that the president is a businessman. I mean, even when he was sold to the country, was sold as this is a businessman and who'll be able to run the country. And as you rightly said, the president hasn't in fact been formally charged. Do you anticipate that this might indeed then happen, or do you think that there will be sort of, I'll call it closing of ranks, you know, around the president? And during all of this, while we're kind of discussing all of this, I mean, you know, it also kind of talks to the president's reputation at this time, and at a very crucial time. I mean, really, it's elections. It's an important year for the ANC in general. We're seeing these conferences underway that you've been covering for us. I mean, what does it all mean for all that's taking place around this time? Some may even argue, you know, this is all just some sort of a smear campaign against the president. If you look at everything that's going on around the ANC, the president, what are your thoughts in that regard?
Politicians are notorious for saying when there are issues hanging over their heads that it's a political smear campaign. It's a political witch hunt. The president of the ANC is no different. The political manuscript is continuously the same. 10 years ago, when former President Zuma was at the helm of the country, it was a political smear, it was a political campaign. Mr. Digital Vibes himself today, it's a political smear, it's a political witch hunt. I did not steal those millions of rands when it comes to Digital Vibes. It's not yet proven, but you've got the SIU with those particular investigations. So Ace Mahashule as well, it's a political witch hunt. Denim Caesar, it's a political witch hunt. So politicians are notorious for using that particular line. Even with those in the EFF, they say it's a political witch hunt on the issues that they are facing as well. So it then tells you that politicians will always shift to say when they find themselves in trouble with the law, it's a political witch hunt, it's a political smear campaign, it's dirty politics. As we head towards the 55th National Conference of the African National Congress, Cyril Ramaphosa, as president of the ANC, is not the first to allege that. His predecessor, Jacob Zuma, did the same. He's doing the same now. Those whom he is seemingly fighting within the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, they cry and say that state institutions, the state apparatus is being used against them. You go to the various conferences that are sitting place. Some of them will even tell you, no, we're fighting the state security agency. You've got high-profile ministers, the so-called Chris Hani Kabal, which is fighting against us. One is in charge of state security, one is in charge of the finance in the country. So it tells you that politicians will always use this particular tagline. But what is interesting is whether will the ANC close ranks and come out and support their president like they used to do with former President Jacob Zuma, or they simply won't. Cyril Ramaphosa came into the political sphere once again as president of the ANC, saying he's going to go for clean governance, is going to rid the ANC of all the sins of incumbency, particularly the triple challenges of in particular corruption. And he is also tainted with allegations now of corruption. Hence, he went to that conference in Limpopo to say he never stole public funds. But Mr. President, that is not the question of whether you stole public funds or not. The question is, where do these millions of dollars come from? How did they come in? Were they declared to the African Revenue Services? So an investigation will be rather interesting on what Mr. Edward Kitswetter at SARS now does with this particular matter of the president of these issues. And the question that also comes to mind when it comes to South Africa's finance and fiscal policy framework on the issues of illicit money flows or not, is it part of that or is it not part of that? Particularly when you look at the question on safe havens, which was asked for in Parliament to the Deputy President of the country and of the ANC, David Mabuza, on how many people take their monies and hide it abroad. How did this money come into the country? Why was it not banked? If it was sitting at that farm, where was it going? All right, let's leave it there. Samkele Maseko there, weighing in, of course, on President Cyril Ramaphosa's troubles at the moment.